When you think Super Bowl ads, you're probably thinking beer, cars, maybe some snack food, right? What you're probably not expecting is a whole 60-second story just about kindness. But that's exactly what housing giants Rocket and Redfin gave us. So, okay, let's dive in and really deconstruct the brilliant strategy behind an ad that was about so much more than just buying a house.
I mean, that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? In what is literally the most competitive, most expensive advertising space on the entire planet, why would you focus on a feeling instead of, a feature or a rate? But this wasn't just some random feel-good commercial. No, this was a deeply calculated move, and it was based on some very powerful truths about how we live today.
So first things first, let's talk about this partnership. Who are the giants that actually teamed up to pull this whole thing off?
Okay, so on one side, you've got Rocket Companies, a massive force in the mortgage and housing services world, and on the other, you have Redfin, a huge player in real estate brokerage. We're talking about two absolute titans of the industry here, and for this one ad, they decided to join forces.
And look, this was no small team-up. This was their first ever joint Super Bowl ad, and for Redfin, get this, it was their first time ever on the Super Bowl stage in their entire 20-year history. That alone tells you the stakes were incredibly high. They were going all in.
The title of the ad itself is a dead giveaway of their strategy, right? It's not, "You need a house like this," or "Get a loan like this." It's, "America needs neighbors like you." It's a call to action for sure, but it's not the one you'd ever expect from a mortgage and real estate company.
All right, so now let's get to the real heart of it, the emotional story that made this ad stick with so many people.
So the ad follows two teenage girls, and their families are both going through these big, tough changes. They end up as neighbors, and it's this one small act of kindness that just bridges the gap between them. And the soundtrack? I mean, come on. A powerful, really soulful version of the classic "Won't You Be My Neighbor," performed by none other than Lady Gaga. The whole thing is just designed to hit you right in the feels.
And this was no accident. Jonathan Mildenhall, who's the chief marketing officer over at Rocket Companies, he said it himself. He points out that moving is incredibly stressful and difficult, especially for kids, and this whole story is about how one single moment of kindness can transform a house into a home, a location into a real community.
You can really break the ad's simple but powerful story down into three universal beats. It starts with the pain and the isolation of a really tough move. Then it pivots on one single moment of human connection and ends with the promise of a brand new friendship. It's a storyline that anyone who has ever moved can instantly connect with.
Okay, but here's where it gets really fascinating. This emotional story, it's not just a story. It's actually built on a foundation of cold, hard data.
So what did Rocket and Redfin see in all their research that made them bet millions of dollars on a message about, just being neighborly? Well, for starters, the experience they're showing in the ad is incredibly common. The data shows that almost 40%, nearly half, of all households with kids will move at some point. So their target audience isn't some tiny niche. It's a massive chunk of the American population.
And it's not just about packing boxes, right? It's a huge emotional challenge. Get this. Over 60% of parents say their teenagers feel serious social anxiety connected to moving. That is a huge shared pain point that this ad speaks directly to.
And this right here, this reveals a really fascinating paradox about us. Only about a quarter of Americans know most of their neighbors by name, and yet nearly 70% of us have helped a neighbor in just the last year. This points to this huge, untapped well of kindness and a real desire for community that's just sitting there, waiting to be activated.
So, what happens when you combine that emotional story with this really powerful data? Well, you get the core strategy behind the entire campaign.
The absolute genius of this ad is that Rocket and Redfin aren't just selling you a mortgage or a real estate agent. This is purpose-driven marketing at its best. They're selling a solution to a very modern problem: loneliness. They're tapping into that data-proven disconnect and our built-in desire to help each other, and they're positioning their brands as the ones who get that a house is nothing without a community.
So, to sum it all up, this commercial was a masterful piece of strategy. It's part of Rocket's larger Own the Dream campaign, and it used a powerful, emotional story, which was totally backed by solid data, to completely reframe the whole conversation, moving it from the transaction of buying a house to the bigger dream of belonging to a community. And shout out to the agencies Miramar and Zenith, who helped bring it to life.
And that leaves us with a pretty powerful final thought, doesn't it?
In a world where we can all feel more disconnected than ever, even when we're living right next door to each other, maybe this ad is onto something really big. Maybe the most important part of owning the dream isn't about the front door you unlock, but about the neighbor's door you decide to knock on.